Good afternoon. I'm Shannon Williams, the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association, and today you are tuning into in-store merchandising that drives consumer behavior. So today we're going to be talking all about how do you create, what are the best practices for creating better visual appeal and getting customers captivated and getting them engaged in your product, and how do we actually convert this foot traffic? So as a reminder, this webinar is recorded. So if you are tuning in and want to rewatch it, just head over to myhfa.org/webinar, where we have a huge content library of merchandising and pretty much every topic that you can think of. If you do have any questions during the webinar, hit that chat screen at the bottom, and we will get to as many of those questions as time allows. And before we get started, I just want to thank Synchrony, who is our Education Thought Leadership sponsor and is so proud of me for finally nailing that. Thank you, Synchrony, for making this possible. All right, so we're really, really lucky today. We have an incredible panel of experts. I'd like to introduce them real quick before we jump into the juicy stuff we've got planned to talk about. First, we have Lori Friedlander, who is the owner of Furnia Home, all things furniture. She's the principal of basically their consulting firm for home furnishings and furniture. And she spent more than 20 years of her career looking at how fashion and color and style and trends really diversify into positions throughout the home furnishings industry, and has looked at merchandising and sales management and design as her experience, and worked with family-owned companies and corporate entities like Ethan Allen, La-Z-Boy, and Bassett to help bring a better sense of merchandising to the market. We also have Jennifer McGee, who is the owner of Retail in the City. And Jennifer she's an architect and has spent over 20 years as a designer and architect in the industry, where she's designed showrooms with more than 3 million square feet of retail space, most exclusively in retail and furniture retail and mattress. And so her in-depth knowledge on how store layouts improve customer flow and merchandising are definitely going to help give us an insight into how do we increase sales at such a tough time in the economy right now. And then certainly last but not least, we have Hillary Waltemath, who is the GM of visual merchandising at NFM. And she's been there for more than 11 years and brings a huge wealth of experience from a retailer perspective, really from all facets of merchandising, really looking at the blend of creativity and strategy to really ensure that the customer is having an engaging and impactful in-store experience. So ladies, welcome. Super excited for this group today. Let's start it off right from the get, the conversation we led last week with my other group. We were talking a lot about this blend of authenticity of taking the omni-channel offline and into store. So can we just start right there? Is the major takeaway that we talked about was you need to have a cohesive experience of your brand from online now to your in-store. Can we talk a little bit about that? I know, Hillary, that's critical for you guys, at NFM, with, going in and getting 700,000 square feet of space or something like that to shop around. Can you talk about what that customer's experience is and why that's so critical in the merchandising strategy?
Yeah, certainly. And we are deep in the throes of that at NFM. Our in-store experience and our web experience are very different. So that's a very big focus right now, kind of like merging the two. Like you mentioned, our stores are humongous, and we carry furniture, flooring, appliances, electronics, just about everything under the sun. So we have pretty strict merchandising guidelines, while also some room for creativity. So we have to maintain a good balance of that and be really consistent with that, so customers understand and with time learn how to shop us and help them navigate throughout the store. We are also very strategic with our visual merchandising, in that we kind of take 3 different approaches to visual merchandising. I would say most of our store is merchandised in a way that's very lifestyled. You could copy and paste it into your home. How we're styling the vignettes look very much like they would in the home. And then we've got a level up from that, where it's a little bit more aspirational, it's a little bit more inspirational. We're being a little bit more bold with choices. Maybe not something somebody would put directly into their home, but might spark an idea. And then above that, we've got really theatrical, over-the-top displays within the stores. And we're very thoughtful on where we place those. We call them creative spotlights, and they are just like a creative blank space for the visual merchandising teams. So it's rarely something that somebody would copy and paste and put into their home, but really to get customers to stop. We kind of treat them like speed bumps. We've got over 300 sofa options on our floor at one time. And so the customer needs like a little bit of relief, a little bit of a break. So we treat these creative spotlights as a bit of relief to kind of break things up, while also hopefully sparking some ideas or inspiration for them to take home.
That's awesome. And I'm not going to come back to that because I completely agree. What you guys create for those pops is so much fun to interact with. Jennifer, can you speak a little bit more to that journey that a customer is having? So going from in store online to in store and completing, moving through that omni-channel experience. Why is that so critical to make those two to make that journey cohesive?
Well, I think it's important because of customer expectations, right? So more and more people shop online first. So before they ever come into your store, they've already kind of assessed what's out in the marketplace a lot of times, gotten a sense of kind of what style they're looking for. So when they come into your store, they may have already identified some pieces on your website that they want to look at. Well, if they walk into your store and it's not there, you don't have it, you're out, the color representation is not there, then that can be a little bit disappointing. Again, it's a disjuncture, it's disjointed, and it affects the customer experience. You want them to be able to come in and immediately, talk to a sales representative that's knowledgeable about what's on the website and be able to sort of continue that experience, with the customer in the store. And a lot of people are doing, obviously, customization is a big thing these days. So having a customer come in, they might have identified, again, a piece online that they liked, but what are the options now in store for customizing? Can I look at the actual texture of the sofa material? Do I really like it when I touch it? Because I can't touch that on screen. So, and what are now the other options? Can I choose different arms for it? Can you kind of walk me now through that process of actually wanting this, and visualizing what it might look like in my home? Because a lot of times, again, on the website, you might have images that you've done, like a photo shoot of sort of lifestyle type images, or it might be, these pieces in a different setting. But when you come into a store, again, it can be overwhelming for a customer because now all of a sudden it's like all of the furniture at once. It's a different kind of feel. So again, trying to get that kind of refocused. And I think what Hillary was saying, have some moments where it's a break, where they're really, really big inspiration kind of moments to just kind of show the customer what's possible. And I think that that's helpful to kind of try to create that continuity between the online experience and when they come into the store.
Great insight. Lori, did you have anything you wanted to add?
The only thing that I would add, I agree with everything both Hillary and Jennifer said, but I would also add that it's really important to always have that continuity within your store as well. So everything that you do online has to match everything that you're doing within the store, right down to your signage, to the color choices that you're using in your stores. I think that makes the customer feel comfortable and makes them feel, it builds that identification that you want them to connect with you.
Let's talk a little bit about that. When you have a customer that is coming into the store, I think everyone's number one thing that they're asking for is, what are the best practices? How do I let's break this into two things. How do we look at the visual merchandising techniques that help customers dwell? Like, how do we actually increase some of that dwell time?
Mm-hmm. You want me to answer that?
Yeah, I would love that. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there are lots and lots of things to do. And some of them are visual techniques and some of them are salespeople techniques. We certainly, first and foremost, want the customer to feel welcome. So we want them to walk into an open and inviting space. Hopefully there is someone there to welcome them and not to greet them in kind of a salesy way. We don't want, the attack dogs, the next person who's up, approaching the customer and saying, how can I help you? That's just not a great welcoming into the store. I always believe in engaging the senses as well. There was actually a study that was done that said customers who have kind of a multi-sensory experience actually can stay in the store up to 51% longer. So you really, and again, this goes back to the message as well. You really want to make sure that you have music that speaks to the people that you are trying to attract to come into your store. It would be awesome if you had a signature scent and you could actually sell that in the candles, or it's just the smell that everyone knows that your store smells like. Just visual, the colors when they come into your store, they know what to expect. um, and then of course in lifestyle merchandising, which I'm a huge proponent of, every vignette speaks to the person. So every vignette talks to someone. So when they walk into the store, a vignette actually speaks to them and connects with them. And now you've got them engaged. And when a customer is engaged, we know that they spend more time in the store.
That's great. And I know exactly what you're saying. As soon as you said that smell, it was in anyone else channel 2004 Abercrombie and Fitch, and like I can still taste that smell of the
Yeah.
mall. Yeah, and I will shout out, if you guys have never been to an RC Willie, they have like one of the best smelling stores I've ever been in. They have one, it's like tea and white thyme is their signature scent, and it is like so noticeable and so amazing
Yeah.
that I use it at my house now. So thank you, Jeff Child. Hillary, I have to send this back to you because Lori brought up the obvious, how do you interact with those pops? And I think that this is like one of the most beautiful things about NFM. If you've ever walked their floor, they are like living Pinterest. In fact, my phone cameras are full of, oh, I want to do this to my office, or I want to do this to my room. Let's talk about the effectiveness of that and how that's really helped with the customer's dwell time and how that's helped with sales.
Yeah, certainly. We understand that customers are also coming to us not just to find whatever furnishings they need, but they are looking for advice, and not always through a like conversation with a designer, but helping them make intelligent choices on their own. And so we try to do that through offering like a wide variety of style and trend offering as well too. So we are very thoughtful in where we put these like moments for pops or punctuations, whether it's like a major intersection. For us, if they're coming to the second floor, how are they like, what do they see when they first get to the second floor, or as they approach this department? Like, think about the entrances, not just the entrance into the store, but entrances into the department, and be really thoughtful on where some of those land. We did a really fun activity recently where we had the teams leave the store and enter through the mindset of being a customer, maybe visiting for the first time. Like, they're very familiar with the spaces and they're seeing it almost like in the backwards perspective as a customer. So asking the team to come in through the parking lot, come in through the front doors. We gave them kind of a customer persona and a shopping list, and really put yourself in the position that you're a customer, like shopping for the specific thing. What would you maybe do differently about these areas? And so I think we get conditioned to think about it through a visual merchandising perspective, but challenging them to think about it through like the customer lens, because it's also really easy to overwhelm people with too much of these like pops or punctuation. So just being really like thoughtful and really strategic, and like where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Or in some cases, we've had some that are a little hidden. They're just not getting the traffic that we'd hope for. So repurposing those areas as something else and finding a different opportunity to infuse a little like inspiration or creativity.
The one of the most, and I love that you said go outside and pretend you're a customer and walk back through. And I know that that's a store practice. I remember coming there one morning and I watched Irv walk that floor, and it took him, I mean, it's a big floor. It's going to take anyone a few hours to go through, but I watched him like go through everything with those customer eyes. And every time I've seen him in that store, he's doing the same exact thing and then walking the whole team through. It's an entire day activity for him. And I know how important that customer eye is. And it's really admirable to see you guys do that. Here's something that is, I want everyone to hear, because every webinar I've ever gone to, people are constantly asking, how do I do this on my budget? And one of the things that I find most admirable about how you merchandise is you guys are not giving I mean, I found out how little budget you guys do for visual merchandising, and it blew my flipping mind. So if you could talk more about how do you give pops an experience for very little budget.
Yes, it is a very, very paltry budget, I will say. We are fortunate in that the team that, like, there's a large team that maintains our facilities. And within that, we've got painters and carpenters with some skills that we lean on pretty heavily to build some of the larger displays for us. But beyond that, we really challenge the teams to be really creative in how they repurpose or reuse things. If you look closely, you'll notice several layers of paint on a lot of our displays and fixtures. And we like encourage and recognize the team members that are really resourceful in repurposing displays. We had one team that had something that was intentionally designed to look like arms of a cactus. Well, we've sat on them for years and years and years, and somebody brought them back and flipped them around, and now they look like cute little stockings. And so we really encourage resourcefulness and repurposing of these displays because we are so tight with our budget. We like to hang on to those things for a long time. So really encouraging the teams to reuse, repurpose, reimagine these things. And then we're sure to like give lots of praise and recognition for those that do.
That's cool. It's a great culture to see that. Jennifer, I know this is one of your sweet spots. Can you talk about how you look at and work with retailers to approach it from the same angle?
Yes. I mean, building on kind of what Hillary said, one idea that you can do is if you have salespeople or if you're in the design business, you can basically create a series of display areas that are, basically designer decorated. And so instead of your typical visual merchandisers that you might have come in that actually set the rest of the room sets, you can have those people, the designers kind of really participate, or your salespeople really participate in setting up some of these. And I think that's what Hillary does. They do with the design spotlights. They kind of give it to their designer. And maybe, for 3 months, it features one designer, and then they rotate it maybe to somebody else. And we have that, happening with some of the clients that we work with. And it gets the salespeople that, sort of inspired, and you can give them a budget. You can say, look, you got to make this presentation happen for $250. Here's your budget. Here's some cash. Go have fun. They get into it. They really get into it. And if you have designers do it, if it's part of like a designer service, you feature them. You put a plaque out there with a little signage. You talk about the designer. You talk about what their inspiration was for that set, why they assembled the pieces they did. So you're kind of talking about all the sort of different parts and pieces that go into making that room set interesting and creating that sense of style. Because people are always like, wow, that looks great. But then how did you put that together? Because I'm not that creative, for example. And so what do? How do I pick these lights? How do I pick that rug? How do I, so breaking it down for people too is very helpful. So if you've got information like signage that you can include that says, these are the kind of accessories, this is your total price, that really helps people kind of understand and start to kind of break down that sort of process. But when you're doing, trying to create focal points in the store, you've got to kind of put them a lot of times as blocks or sort of speed bumps in the circulation pathway. That's a great place to put them. I also tell people, walls make a better presentation. A lot of people still like that idea of having visual sight lines, and while that's important and being able to see through into different departments, at the same time, if you have no walls, you have no way for the eye to stop. Your eye as a shopper just kind of keeps on going, and it passes over, especially when it comes to sofas and low furniture, just keeps going. And so it has no stopping point. You need some walls in your space to visually stop, let people sort of process. Beautiful wallpaper pattern, beautiful paint color, beautiful painting and artwork. Don't forget, lights are super, super important. Lighting is, I would say, one of the most important things. You can do a great, presentation, and then if it's lit poorly, won't make the impression it needs to. So there's always lots of things to think about when you're trying to put together a beautiful room set.
Lori, how much does this matter when you're thinking about, there was a question that had come in just around like 3D and AR and just bridging that model. Somebody was asking about, as customers are walking through there, are we giving them a tablet? Are we letting them interact online? Like, where do we start to create that experiential with all this technology that's available?
I think anywhere we can. I think that's absolutely the direction that our industry needs to be heading in, that we're not. I know I have walked into stores where they are literally still doing paper and pencil floor plans. So I think as an industry, we absolutely need to start embracing technology. And I think the retailers who do that are going to be the ones that are going to stay more relevant because that is the direction that we're heading. And I just kind of want to add to the previous, what we were just talking about previously. Um, Another thing to remember too, if you really just don't have a huge budget and you just don't have a lot of staff, rethink things, even just moving vignettes around in your store can make a huge impact. Because many times we know that it's old, and we know that it was, in the back corner, but all of a sudden when we bring it to the front left, when it was in the back right, it just gives it a whole new life and it gives the store a whole new life. So I think, at the very minimum, just moving some things around can make a huge impact. And I also want to just talk about too, which we haven't talked about yet, is just cleanliness. Just really making sure your store is clean. That is a huge turnoff to customers. So, keeping your store really clean, moving it around as much as you can, doesn't cost a lot and can make a huge impact.
Yeah, I was having a similar conversation with a retailer, and he asked for he said, "What's your honest opinion?" I said, "I just laid on the mattresses and all your ceiling tiles are brown and stained." And
Right.
it's kind of that same kind of idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, this is an interesting conversation because we're talking about spending $200, $300 to really bring character and a feel to our store. Yet the vast majority of retailers that I have stepped foot into, and I've seen a lot, are not bringing that element of charm into their store. Why is that? Are we missing creativity? Is there a lack of trust to delegate this? Does this feel like it doesn't matter? Like, what are you guys seeing? Lori, Jennifer, you guys are working with retailers. Why aren't we addressing this shopping experience, this virtual, like this visual merchandising?
I don't think they've experienced the results. I know my gut feeling is they just don't believe it. They haven't experienced it, so they don't believe it. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles to get over.
Jennifer,
Yeah,
same.
I think it could also, yes, just in part be a perception of that, or simply just don't know what to do. Not all furniture retailers are, entered the business being sort of that savvy and creating sort of a sense of style. So some of them are just really good about knowing how to buy the furniture and put it in the store. But beyond that, like that other thing called visual merchandising sounds a little daunting and don't know how to bring the resources in to do it well and correctly. So I think that is it. They don't, there's just sort of a misnomer that it actually works. I mean, I would agree with that. Sometimes it is, and they think it is a lot of work because
Yeah.
it creates a lot more work. You have to spend the money to do it. You have to maintain it. It's much easier just to fill a showroom with furniture and that's it. It's easier,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
not as effective.
Yeah, and it's not directly measurable, right? And
Right.
most furniture owners are business people, and they want to be able to measure, and you can't measure it, but you can, just not in traditional ways.
That makes sense. So one of the things that I hear the most often is like a 30% close rate. People come in, they shop, maybe we're closing a third. Are you guys seeing the exact same number? And if so, what impact really do we have any place to complain that we're not closing more business if we're not paying attention to what the customer's seeing, feeling, and experiencing when we're at a showroom?
100,000 million percent. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, so there are so many ways that so many things that have, well, actually, closing a sale is the direct proportion of the amount of people that come into the store and the amount and the way that you are able to solve the problem for that customer. So the more customers that we can solve their problem, the higher our close rate is going to be. And we can absolutely use merchandising, especially lifestyle merchandising, as a way to help solve problems for customers. And there are lots of other tools besides, sketching and all kinds of things, especially on busy weekends when there's not enough people to help. More self-serve tools within vignettes can absolutely not only keep people in the store longer, but help to close the sale. So there are a lot of things that we could be doing to increase close ratio.
Hillary, I'm assuming that there's some correlation between those really cool pops that you guys do with the sales of the product that you put in those pops. Is that true? And what kind of a correlation are you seeing between when you guys do a pop feature?
Yeah, I'll use one example of one of those features. We had a leather sofa from American Leather. I want to say it was one of our, if not the most expensive leather sofa we had on the floor, close to it. And it went from selling one a month to 12 a month when featuring it in this creative spotlight. And so we're certainly seeing like true like metrics prove that visual merchandising is contributing to sales. But even we don't necessarily have a department for wall decor or specific department for all of our accessories. We do have that mass merchandised in certain areas, but the amount of times that we are replacing rugs, we're replacing wall decor, accessories, lamps, right from the vignette, because those are cash and carry items and they're taking them with them. And so, that is a big part of the team's responsibility every morning, is just replenishing that everything that's sold right from the vignette. So that just proves that kind of pulling the whole thing together and dressing it beautifully may not have just sold the sofa, but sold all of those other complementary pieces that go along with it. Same with top of bed. The amount of like top of bed we churn through just from it being like displayed on the bed is pretty significant.
What are we doing, guys, about products that's not selling? So the stuff that we have a few left of. What about, are we showcasing that? Are we clearancing it out and throwing it in a dusty back room? How are we dealing with old inventory? A lot of questions came in about that.
Well,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, I think having accessory blowout sales are very valuable because if those accumulate too much dust, I mean, nobody wants them at that point. So you've got to move them, you got to turn them over, and you make an event out of it, you make a sale out of it, you bring it right to the front, don't hide it in the back, bring it to the front, showcase it, set up bookcases, set up, console tables, other pieces that can sell as well, and create a little marketplace. Run it for a long weekend or whatever, and market it accordingly. Mm-hmm. And people love a thrift experience. They love it. They love the idea of coming in and trying to find the best deals. And then guess what? They shop the rest of the store too. So at that point, you've driven them in for a different reason, which is to find a bargain. And then before you know it, they've fallen in love with the sofa that they saw. So use your clearance stuff, things that you need to move out, as an opportunity. It's not a detriment. You have to, change your mindset about what you can do with these things in order to drive the traffic, in order to drive more conversions.
What are you seeing on that, Hillary?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And we also, I think Lori touched on this earlier, is move it around. Moving it to a new location makes it feel new and different. Maybe the way it was styled before just didn't resonate with the right person. But our floors are very dynamic. We have product that moves in every department nearly every day. We're just constantly moving product around and exposing it to new areas or different departments. We explore cross merchandising. If it's not selling well in this area, what's another complementary area that customer might be in the mind for shopping for? But just the impact moving it around and like breathing a little bit of new life into it we've seen great success with that, especially when we try to bring in these like unique maybe statement pieces that aren't for the everyday customer. Just moving them around into a new location and breathing a little new life into it. We see a lot of success with them.
Did anyone watch that? Did you see that TikTok on your For You page that was like TJ Maxx is great at this, where you go and you're going to see that product move? But they sold a 4-foot scrub daddy every day. This guy was like, "Where is it today?" And they just keep remerching. Somebody bought a 4-foot scrub daddy. So if you're having a problem selling decor pillows, people shopping for decor pillows, I think that definitely says something there.
Yeah.
Lori, what do you see with some of those products that are sitting?
Yeah, I'd love to do, if you're able to, summer sidewalk sales are fantastic because it you can actually get people who are driving by who would or had no intention of coming into your store, and they see your little sidewalk sale set up, and that kind of brings them in. So yeah, just totally agree with everything Jennifer and Hillary said, and just that one little add-on piece.
One thing I've seen a retailer do is anytime they're getting a return that goes into clearance or they're doing clearance, so outdated items or discontinued items, they're basically doing a number of days in clearance, and the commission rate continues to go up based on how long it's sitting. So there's an incentivization toward the salesperson to actually push it. They have visibility in their product, or they have like visibility in their inventory to see what's in clearance and how long has it been sitting. So their commission does raise, especially if it's that thing that got put in the back that no one's thinking about. It just becomes like part of the environment at this point. I think it's really nice to think about who's selling it and do they have incentive to actually let that go too. So let's talk. One of the things we haven't chatted about, we've talked about the visual. We haven't talked about store layout. And so, Jennifer, this is something that you mentioned right from the get-go, but can you talk about some of the different layout designs that work particularly well in furniture, just to help customers flow effectively? You mentioned the walls, but let's talk about like the flow to really optimize product exposure.
Yes, so I would say even if so retailers often will do lifestyle presentations, or they often do by department. And there are a lot of people that prefer the department, the retailer that is, I'm not saying the shopper, because it's an easy way to put merchandise on the floor. So, but no matter what you do, I think at the entrance, it's really important to give a better sense of all the kind of product categories you have and to create a very strong style statement up front. Go a little bit riskier with that if you're not used to it. Engage the customer, because when a customer comes in, they want to be inspired. They want to know that when they came in the store, wow, this is really cool. I didn't know that, this retailer does this. I wouldn't have known this. You want to surprise them. Then as they kind of shop the store, maybe that has to come down a little bit because, you don't have the budget to kind of keep doing that, or you do a department kind of presentation. You can't do lifestyle, throughout the store. It doesn't make sense for different reasons. But definitely, put resources into making that opening gambit very, very interesting. You want a strong presentation. You want typically a bedroom up front, you want a living up front, and a dining up front. And that's just to, and you can do more upholstery. Then as you flow further into the store, usually you open with upholstery. If you're going to go departmental, as a departmental approach, you want your motion up front, you want your upholstery up front, you tend to put bedrooms further in the back. Mattresses, we like to have central, either center or, in the front. And that's because the sales do better. They do a lot better when people have to walk through a mattress department to get to other things. When you kind of put it and you tuck it in the back somewhere, or you put it behind walls, people usually think, oh, I don't need a mattress. I'm not going to go over there. And you don't sell unless it's just the buyer that comes in for the mattress. But if you want an add-on, people are shopping for bedrooms. Oh, okay, maybe I'll get a mattress because the whole sort of thing is more integrated. I don't have to go into this separate space and feel like I'm buying a mattress. That can make a big difference. So, you got to be very conscious about those kind of decisions and how people kind of negotiate through the space. But have amenities. I mean, have things part of the customer experience, as well as having a place where people could sit down and talk about the decision. It's a family where they might, want to, decide which, sofa they want to get, which one they really like the most. You need breathing spaces too. Don't just, pack a store so tight with merchandise that people can enjoy that experience. Provide coffee or at least water or Cokes or maybe cookies or ice cream. I mean, depends on what you want to do. I know, at Nebraska, you can buy a cup of coffee. They have wine, I believe, on certain days of the week. I mean, wine, alcohol has become more and more popular as a way to kind of enjoy the shopping experience, because if you're going to commit to coming into a furniture store, I mean, you're going to kind of probably spend a few hours if you're a serious shopper. So, hey, why not make the experience all the more pleasurable?
There's
And
also a direct correlation between number of glasses of wine drank and average ticket order, right?
just Barry say the ticket order tends to go up. Well,
There you go. Whoever's partying on this webinar right now, we're here. So, day after
That's right. But
we're
Living
hosting happy hour.
Spaces has done an amazing job with that because they offer the wine and the beer for like at cost. So we've talked to people that have come into that store, and some of them, one guy we talked to likes to bring his wife there on Friday night for their date night.
Oh no.
Because the wine and beer is so, it's practical. Do they then shop the accessories and maybe go home with a couple of other things? For sure, So, I mean, there's a multi-layer strategy to that but yes, you have to take that on. It's a bigger thing.
We
But
hope so. She deserves that. What about you, Lori? When you're thinking about that flow, is your strategy in the same mind as Jennifer? Do you have something different that you think?
I believe more in a hybrid approach. And it can get really hybrid depending on the size of your store. Just because you don't have room to have a mattress gallery, that doesn't mean you can't sell mattresses. You could be very strategic, and you don't even have to put all your bedrooms in one area. You could have, make sure. So I like to combine like a lifestyle merchandising concept. So you could have the bedrooms of each lifestyle near enough that it would be very easy to shop the mattresses. So you can actually show the mattress on the bed, and you can actually sell mattresses, without having a mattress gallery. So it really depends on the size of the store. And it also depends on, are you a design oriented store or not? Because if you're a design oriented store, then you probably want some kind of design center in the center of the store. The other thing that wasn't mentioned that I think is really important is to have somewhere for kids. Because I really feel strongly that if a customer comes with their kids and you show them that you appreciate and respect their kids and welcome their kids and love their kids as much as they do, it creates a bond. And it's also just a good place to have the kids, have their attention to something that's interesting to them, and then the parent or whoever can focus on shopping for the furniture. So I do like to have, doesn't have to be anything fancy, just some thought put into a thoughtful place for kids to spend some time and feel welcomed into the store.
That totally makes sense. I know that, like, if you go to NFM, there's an entire toy store. It's not hard to get kids entertained in that space. Now,
Yeah.
Hillary, y'all have been in innovation mode, right? You guys have done some incredible things, especially since Nora Gomez has been with the store. I know you guys just launched optical, which is so wild. You guys are doing home improvement, and now you're branching into, like, you can get Yetis there. You can get mountain electric bikes. You can get coolest KitchenAid display I think I've ever seen at a store. How do you determine how a customer navigates when there's a Bose store, there's an Apple store inside your store, there's a See's Candy store? How do you even approach flow from a strategic standpoint?
Yeah, we always, when we're introducing new categories or product lines, we're always thinking about flexibility. So we're always thinking about, like, of course, this is going to be really successful. We want to put everything into it to make it super successful. But in the case it doesn't work out, we want to be able to fail fast and move on. So we're always thinking about flexibility. If these fixtures we're designing for this display, if it needed to move out of this space, would it be appropriate to fit somewhere else within the store? So we have a lot of what we call flex spaces that, depending on the season, are dedicated to certain product categories that expand for the season. We have like lawn care. So right now in our Nebraska location and Kansas and Des Moines locations, lawn care is scaling back, and we're bringing out more snow blowers. And so flexibility is always in mind. So if we have to move on from that product, or it's not relevant during the season, that we can move it, relocate, and we don't have this giant empty gap. So we're always thinking about flexibility when we're bringing in these new product categories, and then also thinking about adjacencies, like what else is top of mind for customers when they're in shopping for lawn care or Yeti or whatever, or can we put together like a shop where we're bringing all of this product together in one location where these things are top of mind for customers. So bottom line, I think flexibility is the biggest one.
Hillary, you mentioned a little bit more about the holiday, we have holidays coming up. So how can we, let's talk about some ways, how do you integrate seasonal and some of the promotional stuff that y'all are doing without actually like detracting from or disrupting your store's overall aesthetic? I think Christmas is like a nice theme, but how do you bring those promotional pieces in without it taking on its own, taking on the Christmas shop?
Yeah, yeah. So a few years ago, in terms of just visual merchandising, we decided that we needed to bring holiday through deeper into the store. We need to, because it was very heavy and like the entrances, but we needed to kind of bring that through the store. And again, we're talking about bringing it through a very large store that carries a ton of different product. And so we thought about our like holiday trim in a way that felt very much like NFM, but felt very classic. And we're kind of like bringing in the NFM holiday aesthetic across the entire store, but then being really thoughtful about putting together gifting stories, because that's of course top of mind for the season. So during the holiday season, we pull together what we call Santa's Workshop, where we have a toy department, but we also create this really over the top Santa's Workshop that's got some of the season's hottest toys. And we like concentrate it in one specific area. So whether it's like within the department or in another highly trafficked area of the store, we think about gifting in all of these different areas because we're talking about Black Friday, and obviously people are shopping for other people, but they're also on the lookout for deals for themselves as well too. They want to take advantage of some of those sales or promotional items for themselves and take advantage of any money that they could be saving. And so we're kind of thinking about gifting and pulling together like really thoughtful gift shops within the departments, and making sure that it's all like complementary to each other. Like the Santa's Workshop for toys, it's much more colorful and cheery and whimsical. We've actually just executed a pop-up shop that's all about holiday gifting, and we pulled together 4 different customer muses. So if you've got somebody that you're shopping for, we've kind of curated it by the person you may be shopping for, and pulled together any product that would be appropriate for this person on your list.
Jennifer, Lori, what are you guys, what are your suggestions on how do you bring, Hillary mentioned something kind of cool is really actually looking at the brand of how they do Christmas. Do you see maybe there's is there any disconnect that you're seeing in retail where we're not considering that Christmas is its own brand that's tied into a larger brand? Does that play into this? Or how do you guys see the rollout of like holiday or special promo?
I can answer that. So I mean, I see holidays so many different ways. some are well executed, not some not so much. So I think the better executed stores are treating a holiday as a lifestyle. And a really well executed holiday display has a theme, and it does go throughout the store. It's not just, okay, we're going to decorate the entrance, and then by the time you get to the back of the store, you've already forgotten that it's holiday. And I think, I think Jennifer touched on, as you're going through the store, you want moments for the customer to stop. So I think it's important to have moments throughout the store, not just at the entrance. So maybe you have a tree or whatever you have at the entrance, and then, depending on the size of the store, strategically in other places throughout the store. So it should flow, it should feel like it's a story that's weaving throughout the entire store. And I really think it just needs to be treated as its own lifestyle.
Lori, can you spill the tea? What makes a terribly executed seasonal display?
One that's not thought out. You know, I mean, you can sometimes tell, like, oh, okay, somebody bought, a lot. They just, got a great deal. And or they're just, recycling several years of Christmas and just throwing it out there. You can tell when something has not been thought out. And I think holiday really has to have that thought out feeling to it.
Jennifer, do you have anything you want to add on this one?
I was going to say it just needs to tell a story. I think
Yeah.
less can be more. Like Lori was saying, I mean, if you just buy a bunch of like tinsel and ribbons or whatever and throw it around the store, I mean, that doesn't really do anything. What you want to do is integrate it into lifestyle. So, for example, if you have a dining area or a dining set that you're featuring, the theme might be entertaining at Christmas. So what does that look like, right? If you're entertaining at Christmas, a big family, you're going to set that dining up. You're going to choose maybe one of your bigger dining tables, right? That kind of maybe has a leaf in it, and you can show up to 10 seats to it. You can make a very, put these sort of plates and the decor and the crystal out, and you're telling a story about it. It's like this is the table that will help you entertain at Christmas.
Mhm.
That's kind of an integration that you want that would actually help you with sales. Throwing tinsel around your store is not going to help lead to sales. I mean, it might be kind of cute. I'm glad you got in the Christmas theme, but it's not, you want it to try to help you actually sell something if you
Mhm.
can.
So zooming out of just looking at Christmas, can we talk about how lighting and color and signage and exactly what you're doing lifestyle really helps make the store feel cohesive, highlight key products, and ultimately lead to better sales? Let me give this over to you, Jennifer, to start.
Yeah, I think again, I mean, it's really with any kind of holiday that you pick. I mean, you can pick 4th of July, even you can pick, Easter or any of these. To me, it's just you want to sort of try to imagine what a customer is buying for and how that can influence, the decision making.
Mhm.
So, family is a big topic, I think, over Christmas. This year it might be more divided. People might have smaller groups versus bigger groups. Providing solutions. I mean, you're really providing solutions so that people can celebrate holidays the way that they want. And these days, I mean, think about other people's holidays. It's not just, if we, a lot, Christmas is a Christian holiday, but you've got Hanukkah, you've got all these other kind of holidays as well that you can actually think about in certain communities where your store is, they might be relevant. So, you can make stories. Again, it's just, to me, the whole point is to make a story. And if you're always trying to focus on what's the story, what am I trying to tell? How am I trying to provide a solution to this customer that resonates with them? That's really half the battle.
I can chime in on how I like to use color for lifestyle merchandising, which I think is kind of a win-win. It helps the buyer buy more easily, and it helps the customer connect more easily, because when you're doing lifestyle merchandising, the customer has no idea that that's what you're doing. They just know that when they're in that part of the store, like, wow, okay, this feels good to me. I like this area. I'm going to hang out in this area a little bit longer. So what I like to do is make each particular lifestyle have a color theme, so that it's very recognizable when you change from one lifestyle to the next. Because you can ask the customer, well, what are you looking for? Modern, traditional? They have no idea. They just know, when I see it, I know I'm going to like it. So I forgot where I was going with that because a little thing just popped up. So as you move from the color story to the color story, they can kind of feel that change. And then they can kind of be like, oh, okay, now I'm into a new part of the store. This may or may not feel as good to me. I might want to go back to where I was, or maybe I'm going to continue and explore. They can actually feel the change. How it helps the buyer is when you are buying accessories, rugs and lamps and wall decor and accessories, you know what colors you need to look for. So you know that my modern vignettes are in jewel tones. I'm going to look for jewel tone modern accessories. I don't need to waste my time. I mean, yes, you want the full assortment, but I mean, just basically for your vignette purposes, and for rugs, again, a purchase for the rugs, for the floor, it just makes it a lot easier to buy that way.
The question that I was having, it's really easy as a merchandiser to look at what's selling and make the decision as a buyer to get more of that on your floor. How, Pillar, I'm going to send this to your, how are you as a, when you're thinking about what goes on your floor, if you're only seeing about what's selling, how are you looking at the customers that came in and didn't purchase and making decisions around that because you didn't floor what they're looking for? Like I know a lot of retailers are leaning toward endless aisle or kiosk or catalog. But what about the data that you don't have to make those decisions? How do you go about that?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so let's say a customer comes in and they want a green sofa. Now I know at NFM they have a green sofa.
Mhm.
I know your relationship with Joybird's really, really helped you guys get bold new colors that are very on trend. But most retailers don't. And so if you come in and you're looking for a specific green sofa, and maybe you have the catalog or the endless aisle, but you don't really want to go through that, I can do that at home with my internet. And if I'm looking and I see the brown sofas and I see gray sofas and I leave, and only thing a buyer is looking at is, look, we sold 15 gray sofas this month, then I'm going to assume that the customer demand is always in the gray sofa. How, as a retailer, do you make the decision around data that you don't have?
Yeah. So in some situations where maybe we sell most of the gray sofa, it comes in other colors. We've actually gotten like samples of that same frame, but maybe in a different fabric, and we're putting it in those like feature areas or spotlight areas just to help customers envision those options a little bit more. We've also done a little bit with using some of those like custom order options as like display props, like display the fabrics on the wall in a fun and engaging way, because just looking at it on a rack or like all rows and rows of fabrics hanging are really, really overwhelming. So we've done displays where that like all the different like leg styles are customizable, and creating like a whole wall display with the different options so customers can like envision those different options a little bit more. Or we've got this sofa, this gray sofa and this frame that comes in other colors. Picking a seasonal color and working it into like a seasonal display as well too. And so I think pretty fortunate at NFM that we've got other people that are willing to take some of those risks and have seen the payoff from some of those, but making sure when we are taking those risks that we are putting everything into it to make it as successful as possible.
Good. Jennifer or Lori, are you seeing this with any retailers? How are they getting information that they're not looking at? Like, how are they making those decisions? Is this more of the art than the science?
As far as how they're doing the visual merchandising?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, every retailer knows how many gray couches and how many brown couches they sell, and a buyer would look at that number and say, we need to sell more gray and brown couches. We sold more gray, let's floor more gray because we didn't sell this, or this. But if we're not showing that, or that, we don't know if it's going to actually sell, right? We don't want to take up valuable retail space. So how should a retailer, as they're considering what goes on their floor, really take the risk? And then how do they make those decisions about that risk when they don't have data to look at?
Yeah, so I mean, it goes back to just, you need to inspire people. So first and foremost, yes, most people are going to end up buying the gray or the brown couch. However, they don't always think that coming into the store. They come in again looking for inspiration and, see the green and just be like, oh, wow, I love this. I would love to have it, but it, maybe it's a little over the top for me in the end. And so, well, we have it in this lovely gray. Oh yeah, the gray, I could see that working better with my environment. So people that's a natural thing that happens with a lot of consumers. But again, if you didn't inspire them in the first place, like they may not have gravitated to that and then picked that same style. So I do think it's important. Now, more and more, there's a strategy, though, to go ahead and show that in other colors right next to it. So let's say you do a room set, you do the lovely green sofa, and then adjacent to it, you do a repeat, and you can do stacked. You can put a love seat if you want to do it in a love seat format. for example, you can do a platform and do the gray at the top, and you do a brown, the second tier. And then you can say, okay, well, these are the alternate colors. Oh, yeah, that gray one, I like that one,
Yeah.
So a lot of that is repeating, repeating or, not everyone has the square footage, but sometimes it's better to just repeat product instead of, having sort of more selection. It's about doing more with what you have versus, trying to keep adding different looks and different styles.
I
Yeah.
think the colors also complement the grays and the browns a little bit too. Like we talk a lot about this like sea of furniture. Like it can all start to look the same as you're like scanning across the floor. If everything's in relatively the same color, nothing stands out. It starts to blend together. So infusing a little bit of color to again disrupt that, like we've talked about, I think really helps some of those safer color choices stand out a little bit more and make customers feel a little bit more confident in their decision making as well too, because if they're looking out and everything starts to look the same, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're probably going to turn around and walk out in those situations.
Yeah. You can also use signage, or you can also buy it as a chair rather than the sofa, right? So you could show the sofa in the green to have the impact, but then maybe the same sofa in a chair can be somewhere else, or you can just have in that vignette a nice signage of that sofa in a more neutral gray to make that person who's a little uncomfortable see what it would look like in the gray.
I do think that that's a valuable point. I don't think boucle was a part of the conversation 5 years ago, and it's all I see anybody talking about today. One of the things that Candace over at Pinterest was telling us about last week is Pinterest runs an incredible site on trends, and she says the number one trending piece. There was a question that came in about millennials, Gen Z, what are they buying? How do we know? That's the number one site that Gen Z and millennials are looking for their style design, and the number one search is a green couch. And so I think that if you're not using that tool, it does help you, move into that model that Hillary was talking about. Try something, feel fast. And so maybe there is a pop of trying something different that gets on trend, that sells. Now we only have about 2 more minutes. If we can go around the room, I want to ask you guys one more question. There's more than 50 years of merchandising experience in this room right now. Virtual room. I'm in a box. The question I've got for you, knowing everything you know right now, if you were to open a brand new store, how many square feet, what product line, and how would you go to market?
I would do a smaller store, and I would focus on custom, and I would have lots of technology, all customizable products, and lots of technology. If I could get like the VR glasses and have let customers walk through walk through their room, it would be all about technology and customizing. And hey, if there's even a company that can do customizing really fast, all the better.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori. How about you, Jennifer?
Yeah, I was going to say I would actually probably choose a smaller format as well, but with the idea of just focusing on really best sellers and, focusing on what, can you get your best product, through experimentation and just focus on what you need to do, and then provide all the different sort of colors, all the different options within that. Technology enhanced as well. I don't know if I need to go as far as VR, but definitely like a big focus on the design center, lots of amenities, almost making it really like your Saturday sort of hangout spot that you'd come. We might have brunch for you. We might have a concert for you. We might have an entertaining, I don't know, we could have bingo night, entertainment or activities, events, community stuff as part of it. So it's really like half the store might even be, designated for that. And then the other half would really be about, selling the furniture. Then a much bigger choice online. So, if you don't find what you want there, we've got more, here are the other samples. You can order this online and it'll be sent to you direct,
Jennifer and Hillary, what would you do knowing what you know?
Yeah, very relevant as we're preparing to open another location in a couple of years. But I think we've learned that our DFW location is a little big. So I do love a big store. I would certainly scale down a little bit. And I love lifestyle merchandising. Of course, keeping things organized in departments makes things easy to shop, but there's certainly a trend away from buying the whole matching set or matching collection. And I think a lot of customers want that eclectic look and feel, but don't know how to create it themselves. So lifestyle merchandising and the way that we're mixing and matching and bringing other categories together to kind of show a whole home look without everything being perfectly matching or coordinating from a set. That's certainly what I would do.
Thank you, guys. So just for those of you that may not have tuned in, just to give you a quick recap, consider about the expectations you're setting as the customer goes from online to in-store. Your goal is to inspire the customer through all of your senses. So you don't have to do this on a huge budget. You can do this on a very, very small budget. This is about exciting the customer, inspiring the customer. And I love something that Jennifer said was, when you're thinking about lifestyles, you're here to sell solutions. And so often I hear us talk about selling design, but really the solution of, do you think about the fact that there's 12 people coming over for dinner and you might need to think about that as a lifestyle choice? And so I love the takeaways we talked about today. So much rich information. Ladies, Hillary, Jennifer, Lori, thank you guys so much for spending this time. I hope we can actually meet again and talk more about this. I could talk to you about this all day. For those of you that are going to be joining us next time, we have another webinar coming up on December 12th. It can happen to you. So we're going to talk about protecting your business against cyber threats, probably one of the most relevant things we can be talking about as we just go into some more turbulent times. And I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Stay inspired, stay informed, and let's just keep elevating the world of home furnishings retail together.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.